I got all my little stuff showing. Well, it really doesn't matter. Okay, I'm trying to get this set up to where it is a good fit to show you all. So the cap is done. Is it, if it's too bright, just let me know. So I've already sewn it on. And what I'm gonna do is, it does not look like this when it's on. So it may look like it's over the cap a lot, but it really isn't. It looked more like this when it was on the wig block. So the first thing I do is reinforce my closure. And remember, when you're reinforcing your closure, you want to sew it all the way down. Oh, you're very welcome. So the only time I stretch this cap is when I'm reinforcing the closure. So I have a Brother Project Runway, the limited edition CE 1125 PRW. Most machines are the same way. I'm putting mine on a 4 setting, 2.5 at the top and 7.0 at the bottom. The next thing I'm going to do is get ready to sew this on. And I'm not going to go through the entire wig on live because I do not try to let this charge up. It's just not enough battery on it. But I'm going to reinforce it and then explain to you how I sew it on. So it's a zigzag stitching. You want to back stitch the end, not much, and then stop. So what I'm doing, I'm actually stretching it to keep it as though it was on the wig block. So I'm pulling it towards me for a straight line, and I'm stretching it out to capture it like that. Now I'm at the curve, you're gonna curve it. And I'm still holding the stretch, as you can see. And I know it's not the best view. I could do this again, like in more detail. Stop and go. Before you move, let your needle rest and stop. Let me. Oh, you're very welcome. Sometimes cleaning it off makes a difference. Okay. So I'm holding it, and you want to reinforce it, and I'm gonna show you why. So I'm at the curve. I stop. I'm stretching it, but do not stretch when you sew the tracks on. Stop. So now here, you see how sometimes you sew and it may crumble or whatever. You're gonna pull that. See how I'm creating it to be straight as though it was on the wig block. And when you're, let me slow down. When you're holding it and sewing, you're sewing it on the cap in that area. And I'm not gliding as fast as I would glide when I'm sewing the actual tracks on, because I need more stitching. And this is a zigzag stitch, so you all, I do straight stitch it sometimes. But if you straight stitch, you don't have any room to really mess up. So don't be comfortable with it before you try the straight stitch. And then you want to cut your thread off. And then, as you can see, it's reinforced on this side. Can you explain why my needle is making small holes in my bobbin base? Are you starting with the right size needle? 110/18. Both threads have to be out. It could be different reasons. I have to kind of like speak more to see why. So it's up to you if you want to cut now or later. I'm going to just cut it now so that you all can see how I cut. I use my finger as a guard to make sure I'm not cutting the lace. You really don't have to do this, but if you knew, you might want to, because the last thing you would want to do is cut the lace when you're cutting this off. And what I do when I'm cutting it, I'm not, let me see if I turn this. Hold on. Is the light, having the light better? I feel like this is better. Is it? Can you all see this? Or it was the light better? So when I'm cutting it, I don't want to cut right at the thread. I want to leave a little bit of the cap. It doesn't matter if you cut off before or after. With my frontal wigs, I cut off before. I don't always cut off after. Yeah, when you don't double. So let me tell you something. Doubling is my friend. And it's not because it's single why it's doing that. It's because you really have to make sure you are not stretching the cap with a single. And then also sometimes even adjusting the length of your settings. But you just have to really just be careful. And then what I do is I go in and I just clean it up. I usually cut it really good the first time, but whatever. So this is the cap. The knots are not bleached as of now. I don't even know if she want her knots bleached or not. It's a used closure and it wasn't bleached. So I'm not going to bleach it right now. Now the next thing I do is I'm going to take my tracks. I don't have time to show this. I'll show this another day. But when you have tracks that's cut, I matched them up already and I would double them. And another thing, when you have small pieces of track, I double them. So let's say if I double this track, and I'll link the video to show you how to double. And then I will connect it on the sewing machine to make these longer. And you want to do that, before you actually start sewing. So what I do really fast is I have to double the tracks before I actually sew them on. And I do not mind wet, damp tracks. However, I do not use dirty tracks. That's so important to me that I'm not using dirty tracks. So here you are. Yes, just a tiny bit in front of the cap. And that's because she actually is getting hers glued on. She's getting it installed, but she'll still be able to wear it glueless when she take the install out. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to double these tracks. Don't keep them at the end. I have a video showing you all how to double. I'll link that underneath. I back stitch once. You get a good, they need to be super close, pinched together. And unlike the machine, when you're gliding, you don't want your hands moving too much. I'm just letting it feed out of my hand. Don't feel like you have to rush. This hair is wet. Stop. Get it back. Make sure my hair is out the way. Sometimes, so it's different. So you can sew like this too. This is one technique. If you feel like you have better control, I'm right-handed. I put my right hand through. The tracks are close together, overlap, no space when I start sewing. And when you stop, let your needle rest before you move your hand. So now I'm just getting ready to just double this really fast. So we can move on, and I'm going to show different hand techniques to see whatever works for your coordination. There's no one right way to do this. However, you don't want a gap when you're sewing. So whatever works for your coordination is what you do. I think I sew like this more often, especially when the tracks are new. And let me slow down for a second to show you all something. What I'm doing when I sew, you want to make sure you get a visual to where you see your needle hitting both tracks. And I'll show you how I do the end when I get to the end. I see a little piece of hair right there. I'm not even going to worry about it. I keep sewing, pull out. When you get to the end, you just kind of want to let it feed through. Stop. I back stitch and I pull on the hair. And that's it. So now your track is doubled and it's time to sew it on. I'll show you how I sew a couple of tracks on. And then I end this live because you will continue to do the same thing all the way up when you're sewing on your tracks. So here we have a double track. I was saying earlier in part 1 that you follow the curve. Don't make up a curve. Let's try this. Okay, that's better. You follow the curve. See? So I'm going to take it, I'm going to place it. You do not stretch the cap at all. Place it on. I'm just placing it. Sews on the cap for my singles without ripping the double wedge sews on the cap line. It's the way you're sewing, and I'm gonna go over that. So you see how it's just a placement. And I'm gonna show you all. Sewing on the band, you really can't mess up. And it's like driving. All of this needs to be comfortable for you. So I'm really sewing and I don't have a good setup for a YouTube video. Once you get to the end, I cut in at a slant to make, and I don't want anything hanging off. And now you back stitch. Off the cap, lift it up. So I'm gonna show you with that single stitch. Cut the track, the thread. And like I said, you really can't mess up on the band. It doesn't show you if you're doing it right. When you get on the mesh part, it does. So you see how I say sometimes I decide if I want to sew right under or before above it. I am deciding to sew above it with this one, not right under it. I'm gonna sew right above it. So I get it on. I don't like that you already can't see the placement. I should have had it leaning above, but I'm gonna move my hand. So I attach it. And I'm back stitching. Stop. You only back stitching on the band area. And now, so you do not want to stretch the cap. By that, I mean, if you see your line move, you're stretching the cap. And another thing that helps, when you get your thumb underneath, you feel it. It should be flat on both sides of the line. Just smooth. Smooth it out. Do not overstretch it and place it. You should be able to control that track and cap with one hand. Let the needle stop. Open it up so you can see where you're going. This is your focus area. It's the only place we're worried about being wrinkle-free, smooth. You literally can sew like that. No tension. I mean, no pull on the cap. But use both hands. And you're just gliding it through. Let your needle stop before you move. Stop and go is fine. Still make a wig in less than 20 minutes. Stop it and go. When you get to the end of the track, back stitch and then cut. Because the purpose of back stitching is to seal the end of this track. Prevents it from shedding, lifting up, and all of that good stuff. And I'm just back stitching. And I'm going to show you all this and try to readjust. So as you can see, and in the FaceTime class, like you get a better view because I'm set up, prepared for FaceTime, zooming in right here. And as you can see, it's just going to be flat and smooth if you just follow those steps. Do not stretch the cap, follow your guideline. When you put it back on, it's going to go to where it needs to. So I'm going to do one more, and you can see it's not rippling. It's smooth. I'm going to try to do one more, with a better, let me see if I can get a better view for you all. And it just seems like it's always so much thread. So again, I'm aligning it. You want to make sure it's not hanging off the cap right here. And when I get it, I'm gonna put it on. It's just something about their view that's not getting it for me, for you all. Okay. So now that I have it on, I get it up underneath the footer. If you're having a problem with this jamming, don't start right at the tip. Get it up underneath the footer, put it down, and then when you back stitch, it'll catch the end. And your machine gonna need to be a little bit more slow. So anytime you feel like it's jamming, stop and give it a good yank. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm placing it. Again, I'm not stretching the cap at all. You can see my hand movement. And you have to follow the guideline. So with a single stitch, it's so important that you do not put any tension on this, because you will find that it will ripple more when you're doing a single stitch. And also, like for a single stitch, right now I'm using a 2.5 and a 7.0. I'll take that 7.0 down probably to like a 6, because I don't need all of that space to catch a track like I do for the double tracks. So that's another thing that's going to help you with that single stitch. And you just keep going. I'm at the end, so one time, back stitch. And then you're gonna nip it. Again, scissors in, shears in, not out. And then you're gonna back stitch. And usually I am using scissors or something with this one. No, I have shears. They just aren't my expensive ones. And then you just cutting off. And as you can see, it's going to be good. It's going to be flat. It's not bumpy. And you just keep following that technique all the way up. Yes, I am. I am. So it's like a smaller zigzag to just enough to catch the single. And you want to get as much thread off as possible while you're going. For some reason, it's always more than 2 threads. There's only 2 coming out the machine, but I don't know where all this thread comes from. I'm correct to say you are sewing over the track and not the track. Yeah, so when I'm sewing, I'm making sure that my needle, you give yourself a visual. Your needle needs to hit above the track. So you see, it's no spaces, no gaps up here. So as long as your needle hitting above the track, it's going to always hit in the same spot below. I don't care where it hits at here. Your main focus is seeing your needle hit above the track whenever you're doing it. So when you have it on, you need to see that that needle is going down right above the track all the way around. And you just continue that all the way up, and then you're done. And if you don't know, when you part it with curly hair, a Denman brush is going to be your best friend. Like this, soak and wet. You want to mold it to where you have a part and it's super flat. Put some Nairobi foam on it, tie it down, and you got you a flat, good, glueless wig. So I hope that helps. If you all have any questions, drop it below. I do a better quality video when I get some time over this again. But in the meantime, I'm about to take the next 10 minutes, knock this wig out really fast. Oh, you're very welcome. So you all have a good day. I'll save this video for you all.